They say words are weapons, but the truth is, silence cuts deeper. It's unseen, unheard, yet when used deliberately, it distorts the space around you. Think. The last time someone insulted you, challenged you, provoked you, what happened when you remained silent? For a moment, they hesitated. They waited for a reaction that never came. In that pause, power shifted. They expected noise. Instead, they encountered stillness. And stillness terrifies those who thrive on chaos. We live in an age that worships loudness. Everyone is broadcasting, explaining, proving. We fill the silence because silence feels like a loss of control, a loss of attention, a loss of significance. But this is an illusion. The wise understand that those who speak least often listen the most, observe the most, and ultimately command the most. Silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of self. When you master silence, you stop playing their game, you stop defending yourself, making excuses, sharing. You allow others to open up while you remain rooted, unreadable. In this silence, you learn who is sincere and who is pretending. You see how easily noise reveals insecurity. The louder the ego, the weaker the center. The quieter the soul, the stronger the foundation. But silence is not passive. It is not a retreat. It is the discipline of restraint, the ability to contain your fire when your pride cries out for release. The Stoics called this temperantia, the virtue of balance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you can remain silent when provoked, you have already conquered your adversary." He didn't mean capitulation, he meant sovereignty. For those who choose silence, choose where to direct their energy. And energy saved is power multiplied. Look around you. Every spiraling argument, every crumbling friendship, every regret you harbor began from a moment when silence could have saved you. A message sent too quickly. A truth shouted instead of revealed. We rarely regret the silences we kept. We almost always regret the words we spoke. Because words cannot be taken back, but silence can be broken at any moment. It is a weapon you wield completely. Use it wisely, and it will turn confrontation into curiosity. Use it recklessly, and it will turn into distance. Art lies in discernment. Silence is power because it forces others to confront themselves. When you stop responding, people begin to hear the echo of their own noise. Every manipulator, every critic, every insecure person depends on your response to validate their worth. Take that response away, and they begin to crumble under the weight of their own words. They doubt your thoughts, your plans, whether you even care. And this uncertainty, born of your calm, troubles them most. But silence is not punishment. It is self-preservation. The more you speak in anger, the more energy you lose, never to be regained. Every argument distances you from your center. Silence, on the contrary, reclaims that energy. It is the pause before wisdom. It is the space where emotions cool and clarity emerges. Consider the most powerful forces in nature. An earthquake builds in silence. A storm quietly gathers over the horizon. Even fire begins with a single invisible spark. Strength doesn't assert itself. It comes naturally. The same is true for you. When you stop rushing to prove yourself, you become irrefutable. People sense this the moment you walk into a room. You don't need to raise your voice. Your presence does it for you. There will always be people who confuse silence with weakness. Let them. They show their impatience every time they try to fill the silence you leave. They can't stand not knowing your thoughts, so they speak faster, reveal more, and contradict themselves. Meanwhile, you gather information, observe patterns, and remain calm. The quieter you are, the more others reveal. The louder they speak, the more they lose control. But make no mistake, silence only works when it stems from strength, not fear. Silence born of avoidance breeds resentment. Silence born of awareness breeds mastery. The difference is in intent. You're silent not because you have nothing to say. You're silent because you choose when and how to speak. This choice is pure power, deciding when your words are worthwhile. In relationships, silence can be the reset button that words can't. When emotions run high, silence cools the air. When trust breaks, silence provides a mirror for both parties. In business, Silence after a proposal often reveals the truth faster than any negotiating tactic. A pause reveals who needs what most. In self-improvement, silence is a breeding ground for reflection. Without it, you won't hear the quiet voice that tells you the truth, what you truly want, what you sincerely believe, who you are becoming. We've been conditioned to think that self-expression equals power. But self-expression without discipline is chaos. A disciplined person knows that not every feeling deserves a voice, not every thought deserves attention. Silence gives your thoughts time to mature before they're exposed to the world. It's a filter that prevents your mind from turning emotions into destruction. Imagine a calm leader during a crisis. Everyone else is shouting, arguing, predicting doom. He listens, he observes, he speaks only when everyone is ready to hear him. And when he finally does, his words carry the weight of silence. People listen because they sense he's speaking not out of panic, but out of presence. This is what you develop when you master silence, the ability to act without noise, to influence without coercion. So start small. When someone disagrees with you, pause. When someone attacks your reputation, take a breath. When the world demands an immediate response, wait. Every pause strengthens your mind, like a muscle under resistance. Over time, this stillness becomes your norm. The noise of the surroundings no longer unsettles you, it simply fades around you. In silence, you begin to notice what you've been missing, the tone of a word, the motif of a gesture, the opportunity hidden between the lines. You begin to live not reactively but mindfully, and the world that once shouted at you begins to lean in to hear what you have to say next. Silence is not a lack of communication, it is communication on a higher frequency. It tells the world, I'm not here to perform. I'm here to understand. I'm not avoiding, I'm observing, I'm not weak, I'm wise enough to wait. For everyone who begins to master silence, there comes a moment when people notice. At first, they mistake it for detachment. They think you've changed, become colder, less accessible. What they don't understand is that silence isn't detachment, it's refinement. You no longer scatter your energy in 100 directions. You choose what deserves your words. Every time you restrain a reaction, you reclaim a piece of yourself. At first, silence feels uncomfortable. The desire to fill the space is strong. You'll want to explain your silence, protect it, ensure no one misunderstands you. But true strength doesn't explain itself. A tree doesn't justify its stillness before the wind. A mountain doesn't apologize for its silence before the storm. They simply remain, and in that stillness they endure. You learn to do the same. You'll notice that when you stop reacting, people begin to open up. The impatient reveal their motives. The insecure expose their fears. Manipulators demonstrate their need for control. Silence turns relationships into mirrors. What they see when you're silent will tell you everything about them. Some will become uncomfortable and try to provoke you into making noise again. Others will feel safe enough to open up more deeply because your calm gives them space to breathe. Silence is diagnostic. It reveals what words often hide. There's a deeper layer to silence, listening. True listening isn't waiting your turn to speak. It's letting go of the need to be right long enough to understand. By practicing this kind of listening, you begin to hear what people really mean behind what they say. You detect a tremor of uncertainty in a confident voice, sadness behind anger, melancholy behind pride. Silence trains empathy. It teaches you to see deeper. In silence, you also meet yourself. This is what most people avoid. They fill their lives with noise and distractions because silence reveals the truth. It is in silence that you hear the questions you've been ignoring. Am I living honestly? Am I pursuing what's important or what's impressive? When you stop running from these questions, the outside noise loses its control. A person who can sit alone in silence without fear cannot be manipulated. But such inner silence doesn't appear overnight. It is forged through small acts of restraint. The moment you feel an insult rising in your throat and decide to breathe instead of biting your teeth, you forge it. In the morning, when you wake up anxious and decide to sit in silence before reaching for your phone, you forge it. Every pause is a repetition. Repetition creates strength, and strength creates stillness. Over time, Silence becomes not something you do, but something you are. But make no mistake, your silence will be tested. There will be people who see it as weakness, mistaking your stillness for capitulation. That's when silence becomes its most dangerous form of power. Because when they think you've retreated, you're actually standing taller than ever. They continue to speak, revealing themselves, revealing what drives them. You, however, sit still, learning everything. There's a story about a samurai who was once insulted by a man in a village. The man shouted, cursed, and threw stones, trying to provoke him. The samurai simply stood there, silent and unperturbed. When the man finally left, humiliated by his own rage, the samurai's apprentice asked, "Master, why didn't you respond?" The samurai replied, "If someone offers you a gift and you don't accept it, to whom does that gift belong?" This silence is a refusal to accept emotional poison. Your silence denies him access to your inner world. In this silence, you are not cold, you are sovereign. You decide what enters your peace, what deserves your energy, what deserves your voice. And this control frightens people because most of them live as slaves to their reactions. They think speaking is power. It's not. Speech without intention is just noise. Power is knowing when to speak and when to remain still. The paradox is that silence doesn't isolate you. It connects you more deeply. When you take the time to fill every space with words, you make room for meaning. The right words are born in silence, not in haste. Even your presence begins to speak louder than your sentences. People begin to notice that when you speak, it matters. They lean in, they listen differently, because your words now carry the weight of restraint. And this is what distinguishes the loud from the powerful. The loud demand attention, the silent command it. The loud try to prove their importance. The silent prove it without uttering a word. Think of the leaders, thinkers, and legends we remember, not by how much they said, but by the weight of their words. Their silences were never empty. They were filled with intention, observation, and discipline. When you embody silence, even your pauses are filled with presence. You walk into a room, and people feel the difference. It's not arrogance, it's control. You've mastered the most difficult muscle, your tongue, because language can build empires or destroy them. The moment you learn restraint, you gain an advantage over any impulsive person who confuses noise with power. So when someone tugs at your heartstrings, when the world tries to drag you into drama, remember, silence is not passivity. It's active resistance. It's choosing peace in a world mired in chaos. The storm rages outside, but inside you remain still. This is how you win without fighting, influence without shouting, and dominate without uttering a word. Silence isn't silencing your voice, it's mastering it. It's not about saying nothing forever, but about knowing when your words will be most important. Because when you finally decide to speak, after listening, observing, understanding, your words strike like lightning, quick, clear, unforgettable. People listen not because you speak loudly, but because they've learned that the truth follows you. That's what silence teaches you. Patience, waiting for the right moment. Most people react instantly. You respond deliberately. There's a huge difference between the two. Reaction is instinct. Response is wisdom. When you choose silence first, you give yourself the gift of perspective. You step beyond the chaos, and in that space you see what others don't. You notice motives, insecurities, patterns. You begin to see people for who they are, not who they pretend to be. And once you see that, you can't be fooled. That's why silence seems dangerous to others, because it reveals. When you stop speaking, people fill the silence. They confess, expose, project. Your silence makes their noise visible. You begin to hear what lies behind their words: fear, doubt, the thirst for recognition. Silence becomes your lie detector. You no longer need to argue. You simply watch the truth unfold. But silence doesn't just expose others. It purifies you. It teaches you the discipline of inner stillness. It reveals how much energy you've wasted, explaining yourself to people who seek to misunderstand you. You begin to choose peace over proof, composure over confrontation. And in this transformation, you become untouchable, not because you're invincible, but because you no longer dance to the rhythm of chaos. There's a certain power that silence generates, a quiet confidence that says, I don't need to prove who I am. I know. This is the power that unsettles the insecure. They can't stand your lack of response. They push, test, hoping you'll break the silence. But when you don't, they realize they've lost control. Because the moment you stop responding, they lose access to your power. It's in this silence that you begin to evolve. The noise of the world fades and you begin to hear something else, yourself. You begin to recognize what's truly important, what deserves your words, what deserves your silence. And this awareness makes you magnetic. People sense it even if they can't explain it. That's why the quietest person in the room always attracts the most attention. Their silence carries mystery, authority, presence. But don't confuse this with detachment. Silence isn't an escape, it's an elevation. You don't ignore the world, you engage with it from a higher perspective. You choose not to lower your energy to match the noise. You maintain your focus, your clarity, your peace. And that's true resilience in a world obsessed with reaction. The ability to remain calm, while everyone else is struggling to be heard. Sometimes the most eloquent thing you can do is remain silent. When someone disrespects you, silence is proof that their opinion doesn't define you. When people doubt you, silence is your preparation for the moment when you prove them wrong through action. When chaos surrounds you, silence is your anchor. It keeps you grounded while others drift. Rumi is often credited with a powerful quote, "Silence is the language of God. All else is a poor translation. Whether you believe in God or not, the message is eternal." The deepest truths don't shout but whisper. Nature's loudest forces are often silent. The sun rises silently. Gravity pulls silently. Growth happens in silence. Healing happens in stillness. Strength accumulates when no one is watching, no one is applauding, and no one is writing about it. Think about your life. You grew most not by speaking, but by listening, reflecting, and enduring. You learned your greatest lessons not in the noise of victory, but in the silence of struggle. You found your strength not when the whole world applauded you, but when no one applauded and you still kept moving forward. It is silence that forges an unwavering character. The next time someone underestimates you because of your silence, let them. Let them think you're passive. Let them think you're harmless, because they'll never see the storm you fan with your calm. The most dangerous people aren't the ones who make noise. They're the ones who hold their fire until the perfect moment. The ones who know that timing is everything. The ones who allow the world to underestimate them just long enough to strike at the perfect moment. Your silence isn't empty space. It's potential energy. It's every thought you've held back, every realization you've pent up, every emotion you've mastered. When you finally decide to release it, it comes out not as noise but as force. Focused, intentional, unstoppable. That's why silence is feared. It's unpredictable. No one can predict what a silent person is capable of, because silence conceals a purpose. Remember, silence is not absence. It's presence. It's such a groundedness, such a focus, that you no longer need to assert your power. You've transcended the need for approval. You're not acting, you're embodying. And when you reach this point, you don't just talk differently. You live differently. So throughout your day, try this. The next time someone tries to provoke you, stop. Let the silence speak for you. The next time you want to explain yourself, breathe. Let the silence answer for you. The next time you want to shout to be heard, remember, your quiet presence already speaks for itself. In a world where everyone is rushing to speak first, you will be the one who waits, listens, and then says what no one expected. That's power. Not noise, not domination, not manipulation, but mastery. Mastery of yourself. Mastery of emotions. The mastery of silence. And ultimately, this is your most dangerous power. Because silence cannot be broken. It cannot be argued with. It cannot be defeated. It is the only power that does not need to be proven. It simply is. And when you understand this, truly understand it, you will understand silence is not weakness. It is wisdom at peace with its own power. So be silent when others demand chaos. Remain calm when they thirst for a reaction. Remain still when the world trembles. Because while they waste their breath trying to be heard, you accumulate strength in every second of silence. And when the time comes to speak, you won't have to raise your voice. The world will already be listening, because silence was the loudest you ever spoke.